Ring ring! It's time for another episode of Crossplay Conversations, the show where we dive deep into the world of video games while keeping it light. I'm your host, Luke Lewis, and this week I'm joined by my co-host, the engaged one, the sneaker savant, is Joseph Hooper.
What's up? What's up? I have a gift, not a gift, but like a show and tell thing this week.
Oh my goodness.
I
gotta grab mine. That's a great segue.
Garden key, everybody. The garden key. While Luke is looking for his key, I just want to let it be known, the garden key, near and dear to my heart, all right? This is the one that got me through the game.
So for audio listeners, if you tune into the video version, we are revealing our limited edition I am 8-bit blind box keys. I'm holding up the master key here, which is the one I pulled. Trying to get my camera to focus. It's real pretty.
Beautiful.
What a fun thing. As a quick side tangent, I love when a video game collectible kind of ties into the mechanics of the game. Haven't opened a blind box anything in a long time, so the thrill was there. Claire opened one as well because I got us each one for Valentine's Day. She got the diary key, the cool purple one with the ribbon, also a gold one, so I think quite rare. Ironically, despite how much Blueprints we have played, I haven't found the master key or the diary key, and neither has Claire.
Whoa,
so that was pretty wild.
Heck?
Yeah.
Oh, heck no.
So we're sleeping. We're sleeping
yeah.
here, I guess. Yeah.
Your dad probably has both of them. Has gotten both of them multiple times.
My dad probably has all of them and can tell me where they're found and used, and yeah.
Yeah, man. What a good game. I will say, all right, I don't think this is a hot take, but this might be a spicy take. All right, blind boxes, as much as I enjoyed opening this key, scam. Absolute scam. I would have loved to go on I am 8-bit and just outright buy the garden key, all right?
That's
but
fair.
there are so many people around the globe that bought this. And you know what they got out of it? They got the dang prism key, which is my least favorite key. And
visually, I like that key, but functionality-wise, didn't get a whole lot of use in the game.
Exactly.
I feel like they're each, at least the design of the keys, no matter what, quite cool. And couldn't you get, because was there a thing with like the ultra special edition where you got all the keys, or at least like 6 of the keys or something or other?
I don't know if there was no way to actually get every key.
Okay, interesting.
Guaranteed. I think originally there was like a 6-key bundle, but they were all blind boxes. The only guarantee was that you wouldn't get the same key twice. So you get at least 6 unique keys.
Oh, so if you ordered I see. Okay, well that's kind of nice.
I mean, it is kind of nice, but
that they at least did that, because I feel like when we were kids getting like the gotcha type things, it was not that kind.
But let me tell you, all we need is Blueprints to sell another 1 million copies, and then maybe we could have these on the store permanently, all right? Maybe we can everybody could have their own keychain, because I got some more out there that I would love to get, and this might be over. I don't know if they're even restocking these anymore.
We'll see, because I got these were both on the second restock, so very much enjoyed it. We'll get to the podcast here in a second, everybody, but we had to... had to debrief what's important out here with these Blueprints collectibles, but yeah, I was very excited about that. Very much enjoyed it. Now I feel Claire and I were immediately like, do we got to jump back in and now find these keys in the game? Because it kind of feels like that way, but more excuse to play more Blueprints. Can't complain. We're going to be talking about a bunch of cool indies that aren't Blueprints today. Blueprints may come up nonetheless, but we're doing another indie roundup, first of the new year. Bunch of cool games have been coming out these last few weeks, so we're going to be covering Big Hops, Mio Memories in Orbit, Cairn, and Love Eternal today. Later this week, we're also dropping another episode covering multiple other cool indies that have released, so just lots of good... We were chatting right before this recording, Joseph, and we've decided we're officially back. It was kind of a slow ease into 2026. 2026 is here. And we're going to be talking about a lot of good games. But before we jump into those game impressions, let's start off with our icebreaker question. Got a fun one for us tonight. If you were to describe your personality using an indie game, what game would you select and why? Could take this multiple angles. Do you have an answer right off the jump, or you can even talk through your process as you decide here? Okay.
I think I do have an answer, and it might not be what you expect. Actually, I guarantee you it's not what you expect. If you had to guess, just off the dome,
what you would select for yourself,
if you were gonna rip it.
There's multiple ways I could approach it, because I could think like gameplay loop, just like how you like your taste, or I could go like style and vibes and just like sense. Because if I was going to go solely off of gameplay loop, I feel like I'd pick something like a Tunic, where it has that like difficulty curve, has the puzzle solving elements, has the like intriguing story and humor, and there, you know, the multifaceted, if you will. So I could throw out that. I think about like stylish action games as a genre.
Well, I'll tell you.
So those are my immediate top level. What are you thinking?
In terms of games, for whatever reason, the game that comes to my head is a game by the name of Little Gator Game. All right.
Okay.
My personality. Okay. Little Gator Game, and I'll tell you why. Little Gator Game, a very chill game. All right. Yep. Pretty humorous. It's really funny. I mean, mechanically, it's fun.
Sure.
It's a lot of fun. It's solid. You know, it's just really well made. But at its heart, it's chill. It's lighthearted. I feel like that's me. All right. Like a lot of the times, my jimmies are not really getting rustled all too much. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I like to have fun. I like to joke around. And most things aren't gonna get to me. And I feel like that was kind of Little Gator Game, where you have like certain problems in the game, but nobody was really stressed out. It was just kind of like a chill afternoon, having fun with the homies, with some Zelda light, you know, game mechanics thrown in. So
I dig it. Little Gator Game will never hurt you, and neither will Joseph Hooper. I dig it. That's okay. I'll turn the question around on you. If you were to guess what I would pick for myself, what are you thinking? No wrong answers, but there are some wrong answers, I think.
In my head, I immediately go, the first game that popped into my brain was Coffee Talk. Okay. Once again, another chill game. Ooh. Obviously, we have the Luke patented cozy game, chill game with a coffee TM.
Coffee, I do have a brand.
Yeah, I feel like Coffee Talk, one, it has, you know, P&W vibes, which you do have. It's pretty chill. Once again, Coffee Talk's not going to hurt you. Luke, not going to hurt you. Pretty chill. But it also is like down to business. And, you know, I feel like you running the podcast and just in general, you know, down to business, get stuff
straightforward
done with the cozy attitude on top.
Okay. I dig that. The music is also very rad in that game, and I'm a big proponent of a good video game soundtrack. I like that. I was going to pick Psychonauts for myself on the complete end of the spectrum, because I feel like internally I got all this crazy shit going on, can sometimes be a mess, and then externally I try to like rein it in like a wholesome, honestly, positive way. Answer. So that's where my brain went immediately. Dang. But
now I want to be Psychonauts too.
Aren't we all Psychonauts? So and I mean, Psychonauts is inside of us. We just have to use the little door thing and hop in there and do the thing. And Psychonauts is a good segue into talking about our first game on our indie review roundup. And stick with me. This won't be the obvious answer for some folks. Big Hops we're talking about today, developed by Luckshot Games. As of this recording today, just released a video game documentary about the making of the game. We're big fans of Psych Odyssey here, so I was very excited to see that. I haven't watched it yet, but spoilers, I very much enjoy this game and would love a documentary about the making of it, so excited to get into it. Joseph, I know you haven't had a chance to play this one, but it's been on your radar for quite a while. I've played the first, I think, roughly 2/3 of this one. So for the folks that aren't familiar, this is hearkening back to your classic mascot 3D platformer. You play as Hop, this really adorable frog, going through this super colorful cartoon world. And you're using your tongue as your main way of traversing through the world, doing all these awesome challenges, collectibles, you're interacting with crazy characters. There's some stealthy heist stuff akin to a Sly Cooper game. Really, really fun. This one went viral a couple of years ago. I think it was on TikTok or YouTube Shorts, just for being immediately like so eye-catching in its traversal and swimming and jumping, and it really has a wonderful art style. But yeah, I've been really loving my time with it, and was definitely like the first standout of the year of indie releases that I've been excited to dig into.
Nice. So I guess this will be kind of like an interviewee type situation, because I have been looking towards, playing this game for a while. I'm curious, what is the vibe like? Like, I mentioned Little Gator Game at the top, and that game is very much like, hey, none of this really matters. Like, you're just here to have a good time. This is a great game to relax and de-stress, but ultimately the mechanics aren't here to stress you out. I know Big Hops being primarily a platformer, does the game like consistently ramp up in difficulty with the platforming, or is it kind of like, hey, this game's just fun, good vibes, it's not really here to challenge you to extreme levels?
It's mostly fun, good vibes. There are a fair bit of platforming challenges. I wouldn't say with like the intensity of like a Super Mario Odyssey. There are moments where you need some precision, but it's a pretty wide range, so I think it's pretty accessible for most folks. Similar to this genre, you don't have to go for every single collectible if one's a little too far out of reach or not your thing. You can kind of mainline it if you just want to have the chill platforming experience. In terms of vibes, I think it's most comparable to like a Sly Cooper in terms of story and tone, and I know that was a pretty big inspiration for Chris and the folks who made the game. But like you're meeting wacky characters. There's this main villain who's this like purple mythical ghost-like figure who's messing up your plans. Like, it's very silly. You meet a turtle, you're running around with your sister who's also a frog, like very much Saturday morning cartoon vibes, which I think leads to really creative levels, and they're doing wacky and wild things, and there's 3 different worlds, so each one has a distinct feel. And Hop's main power-up that I haven't gotten into aside from his tongue is that he can eat like fruit and nuts and different things, and each fruit gives him a different power-up, which leads to some really fun level variety. So you can like spawn vines out of walls that then you can climb, or you can eat hot peppers, and then that helps you burn through like different terrain to navigate the environment. And so things like that. It's doing a lot of like best of 3D platformer genre, but I think it's doing it really well and really solidly. The only negative I could really lobby against the game is sometimes the controls feel a little bit floaty. It doesn't have that like Mario level of precision, but I think for what it is and for an indie game, it's like a really, really solid. Like, if Mario's a 10, this is like an 8.5 great.
Oh, wow.
In terms of like control feel, I would say, which I think was my biggest thing when I first saw it, was I was like, this looks great. Does it feel enjoyable to play? And I think it does.
Nice. So another question is kind of, what's the scope of the game? Like, I know you mentioned there's like 5 different levels, but is it one of those things where the map is wide open, you're going to be finding secrets constantly, or is it mostly linear and maybe there's a few optional paths? Like, how's that breakdown?
So there's 3 main worlds to the game. Each one has kind of its own distinct feel and setting, and then within that, there's large zones where you're running around, usually trying to complete one main objective, and then you can run around, do some side quests with different NPCs, find different collectibles before you move on to the next part of the environment. You can always like double back to places for the most part. And then there is a little bit more like linear style direction in some of the levels where you're in a more confined like sewer environment, or you do kind of a stealth sequence in this one section, but for the most part generally pretty open, pretty like explore as you go, move on to the next area when you're ready kind of flow. I've put in probably like 6-ish hours, and I think I'm at the like 2/3-ish mark. Okay. Granted, I'm not going for every collectible. I'm kind of just collecting until I stop having fun in that area and then move on to keep it fresh is kind of how I've been playing it. But I think it's in that like 10 to 15 hour camp if you want 100% everything, and then more closer to 10 if you just want to main path it. But a nice amount of content for the $20 price tag, but doesn't overstay its welcome, I feel like.
Nice. So it sounds like you recommend it.
Yeah, definitely 2 thumbs up. If you've, like me, if you miss Sly Cooper and Crash Bandicoot and, you know, are hungry for a Mario-style platformer in between the big Nintendo franchises, I think this one holds up incredibly well against those. And it's also available on a ton of different platforms. It's on PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch, as well as Steam, so you can play it anywhere you have a console or PC. With that, shall we move on? Joseph, you've been talking a big game in our group chat about this next game, Mio.
Yes. Memories
in Orbit. It's been on our radar, but you said something very bold, proclaiming it your blueprints of 2026. So I want to hear elevator pitch. What's Mio? What did you think so far? Why should it be on folks' radar?
Yeah. Let me start this with an analogy, all right?
Okay.
There's a really famous text called the Odyssey, all right? And during the Odyssey,
okay,
there is a point where the soldiers coming back home stop at this island, and there is this siren, and all the men are just like in a trance. They're just like stuck. They can't get out. They need to go home, but like they're just all stuck in this trance by the sirens or whatever it is. Mio is my siren. Like, I booted it up and I just like could not put it down. And I had like, every time I had the controller in my hands, I would think, oh, maybe I'll go play something else. Maybe I'll play this or that. I just could not put the controller down because it is just that good. And this is one of these games that I recognize, like Blueprints, I look at and I'm like, this is literally a masterpiece. Everybody should play this. Like, the game has no flaws. I don't necessarily believe that with Mio, but this is one of those games that really spoke to me for a handful of different reasons. For people at home, Mio is what I like to call a Soulsvania, in the vein of Hollow Knight, Silksong, Nine Souls, where you're essentially it's a Metroidvania, but you also have like the whole soul system, currency system, and you're also battling really tough bosses. And the premise is you're this little robot, Mio, who wakes up on this spaceship. There are only robots on the spaceship, and from there you just have to kind of figure out what's going on and like why the spaceship is essentially derelict, and you need to basically discover your mission and figure out what you need to do to save all the robots on this ship from dying. And quite frankly, probably 6 hours in, 7 hours in, I probably still didn't understand what the story was trying to tell me. It was one of those games where you're kind of picking up a lot of information, and it's cryptic on purpose, because it doesn't want to reveal its hand early on. So it's not going to be a very straightforward, hey, do this, do that, and the game's over type of experience. It's one of those things where the lore unfolds as you play it. And yeah, man, like mechanically, I really enjoyed it. It's not too hard. I thought, I think maybe I'm in the minority here because I know a lot of people say it's hard, and the platforming's hard, and X, Y, and Z. I'm one who we just talked about, Big Hops. I actually really love a tough platforming challenge every now and again. I loved like some of the challenges in Silksong, and this game has some really, really hard challenges as well, both optional and a handful that are mandatory, but the platforming feels fantastic, so I love doing it. The boss fights are challenging, but pretty fun and rewarding. They are hard, but not nearly as hard as Silksong. So basically what I'm trying to get at is coming off of Silksong, I'm like, oh, this game is easy because Silksong literally put me through the blender. But really, it kind of all comes together for me, and the reason I couldn't put it down was because all of the artistic choices in this game are so well done. I wrote like a whole review about this on my website, can'tpause.com, but I kind of talk about how, one, the art style, hand-drawn, very painterly, is gorgeous. And it's almost like one of those every frame is a painting type moments where you'll go into any area and you'll be in motion or whatever, and everything is just gorgeous. The way they use colors is fantastic. The way that they switch up the colors in certain moments, like if you die, everything turns black and your character is just like a filled in white outline, very artistically done. And Jesus Christ, the music, 10 out of 10. I absolutely love the album. This is really, I'm going to call the shot right now. I'd be hard pressed to find an album this year that one-ups this one, because it is very awesome. Good. Yeah, I'm one to really love like choirs used in songs. And this game uses like, I guess, singing voices really well. And it combines it with kind of like a Daft Punk techno sound as well. Cool. Really, really well. That really, you know, kind of like they have some crazy tracks in there. Battle tracks, kind of calming tracks. There's also a track called Flora. Like, what the hell are we doing? Like, it's just easy. Lock it in. That's my easy album of the year. So, yeah, I mean, I really, really enjoyed this game. I wouldn't recommend it to everyone. Like I said, the game is pretty hard. There are some accessibility options to like tone down the combat a little bit. So if you just want to experience the story, which by the time I finished the story, very moving as well. The story got me as well, like in terms of like somebody who didn't understand what was going on, like halfway through the game or 2/3 of the game, when it kind of all dawned on me, kind of in like a Blueprints way, where you're like, oh, this is kind of what we were building
like
up
thematic
to.
Structure and
symbolism
and broader terms. Okay.
Or even like, oh, like this is the story that they've been hiding behind all these little hints and clues this whole time.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Once you roll credits, they really spell it out for you. Like, oh yeah, this is what has been going on the whole time.
Gotcha.
So yeah, absolutely beautiful game. I probably, if I had to put a number on it, I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10.
Hell yeah.
From me, personally. Awesome. So yeah.
Couple follow-up questions. You talked a lot about how it evolved over time in terms of like the thematic structure and visual direction. How did the gameplay kind of change up? Is it a Metroidvania that's more like vibes based? Are you unlocking new combat abilities? Is it like ratcheting up in that sense too?
It's 100% like a classic Metroidvania where you are unlocking very crucial and I thought well thought out skills as you progress through the game that basically give you access to areas that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to reach earlier in your playthrough. You also get like certain abilities that evolve how you can tackle combat as well. So they're kind of like dual feature where there's one, like for example, there's like a dodge ability, and you need this dodge ability to do certain platforming challenges to get past some obstacles. But then obviously that also that opens up combat a lot more when you can actually dodge instead of having to like jump over attacks and everything like that. So just like little stuff like that, I think the Metroidvania aspects were really well done, and you can't like basically up until the very last bit of the game, you feel like you're constantly like evolving in terms of gameplay.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, this one's been on my radar for a while, but visually every time I see footage of it, it's just like stop everything, stare at this frame kind of game. So I'm super excited to check it out. And for folks that haven't played it yet, this one's also on Game Pass, which I didn't realize at the time of release. So
me neither.
Another justification for paying that giant subscription fee, but I'm glad I have it so I can check out this one. Yeah, this looks really rad. I'm excited to play it, and your high praise has me even more excited.
One more thing I'll say about it that might get you guys, through it is like my mind was blown. I got to the final boss of the game, and it was like one of the first times I had ever, like, especially in like a Souls-like game where I got into the final boss fight, and it was like one of the most calming moments I had ever been in, because like the music is incredibly sick and it doesn't like put stress on you. Like, Elden Ring, you'll hear like a dude chanting or screaming, and you're like, holy shit, this is like a godlike being coming down on me. Mio actually really calming to where I was dying dozens and dozens of times, but I was like, hey, I don't care. I get to hear this music again, and I get to see like all this art again. So yeah, I'm in.
One other question I forgot to ask: how's the map? That can be a make or break sometimes for a Metroidvania.
It's good. Like it's not like Animal Well levels, which I think is like goated in terms of the way they use like getting around and everything. But it's a really solid map, I think.
Okay, no qualms about the map. That's good.
No qualms at all.
Excellent. All right, Mio Memories in Orbit. Very excited. We also got to acknowledge. I appreciate the acronym. It's a good acronym. Yeah. It's a good name. Well done. Well done.
Mio.
Awesome. All right, we're moving on to one that's been on my radar also for years at this point. It's Cairn from the Game Bakers. For folks that aren't familiar, this is a climbing adventure, exploration, survival game with a heavy emphasis on narrative. You play as this experienced climber, Ava, who is trying to climb this massive mountain Kami up to the summit. And it evolved into more than I initially thought it was at surface level. I really expected this to be a very like narrative focused experience, more about her story and life struggles and kind of the journey, and less about the physical mechanics of climbing. But at its heart, this game features one of the coolest climbing systems in a game I've ever experienced. The way it works for folks that haven't played it is you're controlling one limb at a time and selecting where you place each arm and each leg as you're climbing up this mountain. So you're looking for footholds and cracks in this mountain to maneuver up and make sure you're balanced, and you're regularly worried about things like your stamina, drinking enough water, having enough food, resting. And while that all can sound intimidating as somebody who doesn't necessarily gravitate towards the survival genre, the way they onboard you into the process and teach you how the system works, I think is really, really cool. And I also really resonated with the story. And on top of everything, it's one of the most visually striking games I've seen come out in recent years. And it's just doing all these really cool things. So I feel like I'm rambling. I have a ton to say about this game. So if you have like specific questions or things you want to get into, but this has been like, you talked about how Mio has become like your blueprints for you. Once I started playing this, it was like, oh, I'm going to be so annoying come game of the year. See, like Cairn is about to be my whole personality in a fun way, when you realize like you're playing like a favorite game for future years.
So I'm curious, right? Because Cairn wasn't really on my radar until maybe a couple weeks, maybe a week or two leading into launch. Mm-hmm. Like I knew about it. I knew it was coming out, but the idea of a climbing game, just in particular, didn't really excite me that much. And then I just happened to, look at the trailer again and like really look at the trailer a bit before the release. And I was like, oh wait, this actually looks like this might be kind of sick with like what they're teasing in terms of mechanics. But I'm curious. This game has kind of like taken the indie landscape by storm. Sold, I don't even know how many copies, a ton of copies.
They're already up to like over 300,000, I think.
Yeah,
and that's just on Steam. I think they've done more on console, which is crazy for this type of crazy awesome in a good way. But yeah.
But what do you think it is about this game that like just clicks or like really has that potential to resonate with so many people? Like, is it something about the mechanic? Because like we've had Jusant in the past. We've had like climbing games, so I'm curious what it is about this one.
I think it's this like perfect amalgamation of everything it's doing, because like I was saying, at the surface level, I expected a Jusant or Journey or more of like a Giant Squid game that was way more about style and vibes and experiencing these beautiful vistas and going on this emotional journey. But what they're doing with these survival mechanics and the physics-based system of the climbing just feels so unique and distinct, but also so simple in concept of like you're literally moving one hand or one foot at a time and then maneuvering and just being really strategic about your planning. And I think this story of, like, I think the story is really cathartic as well, and the way it is kind of complemented by this survival gameplay of overcoming obstacles and dealing with interpersonal demons, and all the while you're uncovering these really cool pieces of environmental storytelling and relics of the past, of, without getting into specific spoilers of moments and things, but like people who lived on the mountain or other hikers that attempted this journey, because it's in this fictional world, it's like the Mount Everest, where like hundreds of people have attempted to summit this mountain but never have. So there's some really like cool, just like thematic things that they're doing. So I think it's that combination of it is truly something unique, and the tutorial does such a good job of just getting you into the thick of it, and then once you have things down, ratcheting it up in a way where I've never seen a climbing game. Like, I love Jusant, I love, climbing in a Breath of the Wild, or like managing stamina meters and things like that, but this is like so next level in a sense that they like gamified hiking and mountain climbing in just a very, very compelling way, that it starts very simple. You're like, I got this down. And then you climb out of the rock gym into the real mountain, and oh man, it gets harder. And
okay.
There are frustrating points, not in terms of like the gameplay design, but it can be challenging. And there are certain aspects of this game that I think will really resonate with people who enjoyed like Death Stranding or Baby Steps, which is a weird comparison, but I think it has a similar like meditative catharsis when you get into a flow state. But yeah, that's kind of my general take on it as I'm playing.
You kind of talked about like the story aspect and like the environmental storytelling. Like, what's the percentage, or like what's the pacing of like story moments? Where is there like a point where, because I feel like I remember in the trailer there was like a cutscene type moment, versus like you actually looking in the environment and picking something up or whatever.
Yeah, there are like fully voiced cutscenes. The voice cast is really incredible, and you'll encounter story moments like organically as you're climbing. Of, you'll get to a certain point on the mountain, which will trigger a story moment, or you'll find a collectible of some kind, which will trigger something, or in a lot of cases, you're very focused on the climbing, but you'll get to these like peaks and vistas with save points, where once you get to a save point, you're kind of treated to a little narrative moment of like, you overcame this challenge, so now you get some story context that kind of fuels you until the next save point. Gotcha. And then you also have your climbing robot with you that plays into things mechanically, but it also plays into things narratively as well, because Ava is receiving messages from home via the climb bot, so she's getting like audio recordings from like her partner, and then also like her agent, because she's a professional climber, so she's getting these, but they're one-way messages, so she's responding to them out loud like as she's climbing, but she's not like talking directly to them. She's just like, oh, that's a funny message from my jerk manager who wants me to worry about sponsorships, not gonna respond, keep climbing, or things like that. So it kind of builds the character in interesting ways. It's a very just like unique experience that I don't think I've played something that, like, we've played climbing games, we've played games with environmental storytelling or survival mechanics, but the way they've just taken like the best of those genres in a really confined way, I think is very well executed.
Nice. I'm definitely picking it up ASAP, because this is definitely, once I heard people like really raving about it, I was like, oh yeah, this seems like something that I'd really enjoy. It's
an acquired taste for sure. Like, I wouldn't recommend it to literally everybody. I know there is I'm playing on the like default normal difficulty. I know there's a more accessible, slightly easier mode. I'm guessing because the way it works in the game is you have these pitons, which are like metal nails that you're hammering into the mountain to then hold your place. So on normal, you get a certain amount of those that throughout your climb, you can hammer those into the rock and then like rest for a second, regain your stamina. There's a harder difficulty that gives you none of those. So you essentially have to free solo everything, like that crazy documentary. then I think there's an easier mode where like you get more of those and things are kind of easier placed in terms of like resource management and whatnot. But I found it to be a good amount of challenge. I've had an occasional setback, but it's always felt narratively justified. Or if I mess something up, it was like the most like, yeah, that's on me. Yeah, I put my foot, I risked something. I threw my leg up too high. I made a risky maneuver because I got a little overconfident, and I paid the price. The other thing that I do want to highlight on the gameplay side that I haven't talked about is it does some of the coolest menu UI I've ever seen in a game, where as you're climbing, you can view your route of what path you chose to climb up the mountain. And then you can look ahead at the routes ahead of you, and it'll show like the difficulty curve of like, if you go up this way, it's real hard. If you go up this way, it's like easier because there's way more footholds and you can kind of clearly see what's going on and what you can balance on. And there were moments where afterward I would make it up a crazy situation, and then I'd get to the top and I'd click the button to zoom out onto the mountain map view and look at my route, and it's like, oh, I accidentally went the hardest way possible, or I avoided this crazy situation over here and then stumbled on like a dynamic gameplay moment where I encountered like I'm blanking on the word, like a tram car, like a
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's not the word I'm looking for, but like a gondola, or like a displaced gondola car up in the mountains, or I'd find like remnants of past hikers or different things that you'd find. But this UI of the route is like kind of the most satisfying thing ever, because you can trace it all the way back down to the tutorial area, and then it follows you all the way up the mountain throughout the entire game. And then I've seen folks that have gotten to the end of the game and then just comparing routes and things with friends has been like an interesting experience. Cool. Of talking to my coworker in front of the show, Kyle, about like, okay, he's like, where are you at in the game? Okay, so you haven't done this yet. You're gonna when you get to this point and this thing happens, stuff gets crazy, and it's wild, but it's real cool. I'm super excited to finish it. I've put about 8 hours into it, and I think I'm like 2/3 ish of the way through, but it's one that I could kind of see myself running again, just because once you get the muscle memory of it, it'd be cool to see like how fast I can beat it, or like what routes I can tackle. But yeah, such a rad game. Cannot recommend this one enough.
Nice.
And if you go on Steam right now, there's a Steam bundle with it's the Summit bundle, and it's Cairn and Peak in one little package. Very different games. Highly recommend both, though.
It's nice.
Closing things out, Joseph, we got one more game to talk about. You've also been playing Love Eternal, which is, once this episode releases, will be out for folks.
Yes, I played and finished Love Eternal. Man, what do I even say about this game? This game is weird, man. This game is extremely weird. I had an okay time with this game, is what I'll say. I had an okay time with this game. I liked that it went places. I liked that it was trying to be weird. And just like the overall atmosphere and what the game was going for, I really appreciated. I just maybe wasn't completely on board with the execution in a lot of cases. So Love Eternal, like, to describe it, it's kind of hard to even describe, but the premise is you're this little girl, or like teenage girl. You wake up, you go to get dinner with your family. In the middle of that, the phone rings. You go answer the phone. You come back. Your whole family is either gone or your dad has turned into a spider type thing, and you're just like, what the hell is going on? You exit the store, and you're now in like some completely different world, realm, something, dimension, where you now can like switch gravity up and down to get through these like little puzzle screens. Essentially, like each screen is its own little puzzle, and you can flip the gravity up and down to like maneuver your way through the screen, kind of like almost Celeste in a way, very Celeste-esque. I like playing the demo. I always thought that the game was just, there was obviously more to meet the eye. Like, even when you play the demo, because your family's turned to spiders and stuff, it just seems like there's going to be like really insane narrative implications throughout the game. And like, it seems like one of those games that is going to flip the gameplay on its head and just do a bunch of weird things. And it does. It definitely does, but the pacing at which it does that, I wasn't the biggest fan of. There's a lot of that like gravity swapping puzzle stuff. Like that's probably like 65-70% of the game. And personally, I just didn't like that type of gameplay enough, or it didn't evolve enough for me to be completely thrilled by the time I got to the end of it. Like one of the very last things you do in the game is like this really hard final gravity screen, and it's not like it's super long or anything. Like it's a pretty short screen that you could probably finish in like 16-17 seconds if you do it perfectly. But it was just kind of frustrating, and I was like, this doesn't really feel like it's culminating in everything that I learned. It just seems like another really hard puzzle that isn't really building on anything, except me having done so many. I'm kind of a little more I'm a little more gifted at pressing the button when I need to press
You're ready.
it because I've just trained so much. So that part was kind of a bummer. I was hoping it would be a little more like Ooh or something like that, where you're constantly getting new abilities, or like you're constantly reframing how everything works, so that when you finally get to the end, you're like, wow, what a journey I've been on. Whereas here, it's kind of like probably halfway through the game, or a little bit less than halfway through the game, you've pretty much seen all the obstacles, all the interesting ways to use your ability, and after that, you're just kind of tackling different combinations of puzzles. On the story side, like I said, they did get really weird with it. There's a story there. It's going places. There's some really kind of like plot twisty moments where you're like, what the hell is going on? My biggest complaint with the story though is we rolled credits and I was like, what the hell are we talking? Like, what happened? I don't get it. And obviously playing this game before release, there's nobody here to explain it to me. I can't look up what did this ending mean. So I'm kind of just sitting here in the dark, and I'm like, maybe I think I understand it. I don't know. And it's not one of those like, oh, it's up. I mean, I guess it is kind of like it's up to your interpretation, but there's clearly a story they're trying to tell you. There's like very key moments where they're like, look, this is the true backstory of what's happening here. And I'm just like, I'm not following. Somebody needs to take a pause and like really explain this to me. And it just never happened, which is always kind of like a unfulfilling moment where you're like, oh, I hit credits, and it's just like, okay, well, I still don't know, especially when they're dumping a lot of exposition and different story moments on you to feel like, oh, I still don't get it at the end. I feel like it doesn't feel that great, which, I mean, I don't know, maybe everybody else will play it and they'll be like, oh, Joseph, you're just stupid. Clearly it was like signposted all over the place. I don't know. But it is still very artistically interesting as a game. Not very many games are going to attempt or execute like Love Eternal did, so I have to give it that, not of the cap. But I probably wouldn't recommend it to most people unless you're willing to try something weird and you're also willing to endure a lot of platforming pain. Like, it was one of those things where I was doing this last 20-second screen for 30-40 minutes. Whoa, maybe even longer. To the point where I was playing it one night, I was like, I literally cannot beat it tonight. I turned the game off, and then I started playing it the next day, and it still took me like an extra 20 more minutes the next day to get it. And I was like in the settings, I was like,
what can I do?
Is there like a skip screen option? Like, I would skip this if I could, and there's no accessibility, there's no options, nothing. So I'm like, okay, I just got to tough it out. And there's one very frustrating part, which is a huge spoiler that I wish I could talk about, which added to the frustration of that last moment.
You mean like of the payoff, like once you finally did it, or I guess I won't.
There was a gameplay twist added to the final screen, and it had me so triggered. Like, I was just like, what? I'm like, what? Why did you guys do this? Like, this is painful. But I can't talk about it.
Okay, it is fair enough. We'll put a pin in that one.
Yeah. That being said, I've said everything. There's nothing else to say.
Okay. I'm still intrigued. It's one I probably will get to at some point, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a must play right now is kind of where I'm at.
I will say another perk, since you just brought that up. It is relatively short. Like,
okay.
I did, like, despite me saying I spent a lot of time on that last screen,
the rest of it,
majority of the screens,
not too
like,
bad.
At least like 75% of them, you're kind of speeding through. Yeah, so the game is overall pretty short.
Okay. I'm still intrigued. The idea of fucked up Celeste still speaks to me on a deep level. So there's also a demo available now on the Steam page for folks. So if you want to give it a go.
I'll tell you what, play the demo. If you guys like the demo, just know that all that gravity stuff you do in the demo, you're going to be doing for probably
there's a lot
4
of
hours.
That. Okay, fair enough. All right.
Yeah.
As long as people know what they're getting into. Right on. Well, that's Love Eternal. Joseph, I feel like we got to swap games now. You play my 2, I'll play your 2. We'll come back at the end of the year. We'll be ready.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Ready. All right. Well, I think that brings us to a close. Like I said, we'll be back later this week with a couple more indie roundup reviews because there's just too many games. Jacob will be back because he's been playing a bunch of stuff as well. Before we go, Joseph, any plugs, any good of the order, things you're cooking up over there?
As always, youtube.com/@can'tpause. Go check that out. On Instagram, i.can't.pause. Same content. Subscribe and follow on Instagram. And then Player Pod, we got a lot of interesting episodes. It's been guest year so far. We've had a guest on at every episode, which has been fun. So go check those out if you want some casual conversations, some crash outs as well.
You know, all content is fun content. You can find the links in the episode description below. Amazing. All right. Well, with that, we're setting our status 2 away until next time. But before then, I'm going to ask you to do 4 things for us. You can give us a follow on BlueSky at Crossplay Convos. You can also give us a follow on YouTube at Crossplay Convos. Send this podcast to a friend because that's how people hear about podcasts. And of course, give us a review on your podcasting platform of choice because it truly does help. And with that, what if you just played an indie game instead?
What if?
Bye, everybody.